The weight on my chest wasn't from anything physical. It was the crushing silence after my world quietly unraveled. It started subtly: missed calls from friends, skipped meals, cancelled plans. One day, I was managing everything just fine, and the next, I was sitting alone on my apartment floor, surrounded by unopened bills and empty takeout containers, wondering how I got here. I didn't realize how much I was isolating myself until the echo in my living room became louder than my own thoughts. I had convinced myself I didn't need anyone, that strength meant independence, and independence meant solitude. But all I felt was empty. I remember that evening vividly. My phone lit up with a message from Zen. "Haven't heard from you in a while. You good?" That simple text felt like a lifeline. Zen wasn't just a friend. He was someone who had this uncanny ability to see through walls people built around themselves. He had always been open about mental health, community, and the power of connection. I stared at his message for 10 minutes before finally replying, "Not really. Can we talk?" We met at a small, quiet tea shop downtown. The moment he saw me, he didn't say anything. He just gave me a hug. Not the quick, polite kind, the kind that says, "I see you. You matter." As we sat, I spilled everything: the stress, the fear of failure, the loneliness I was too proud to admit. Zen listened without interrupting. When I finished, he sipped his tea and said, "You're trying to carry a mountain by yourself, but even the strongest structures need support beams." "What if I'm just not good at asking for help?" I asked. Zen nodded. "That's the trap. We've been conditioned to believe asking for support is weakness. But science, history, and experience say otherwise." He leaned in and began to share 3 principles that changed everything for me. Step 1. Acknowledge the need. The first step, Zen said, is recognizing that needing support doesn't make you broken. It makes you human. Studies show that people with strong social connections recover faster from stress and illness, and they live longer. He told me about a village in Sardinia, Italy, a place where people routinely live past 100. It wasn't just diet or exercise. It was the community. Elders lived with extended family. Neighbors looked out for each other. Loneliness didn't stand a chance. That night, I journaled for the first time in months. I wrote about what I was feeling, and more importantly, who I missed. I acknowledged that I needed more than just silent endurance. I needed people. Step 2. Rebuild the bridge. Reaching out isn't always easy, Zen said. Sometimes you have to rebuild the bridge you once burned or thought didn't matter. He encouraged me to start with small, intentional steps. Text a friend. Call a sibling. Join a community group. The goal wasn't to flood my life with people, but to plant seeds of connection. So I did. I started small. I sent a voice message to my college friend Mia, someone I hadn't spoken to in a year. She responded with warmth I hadn't expected. We talked for hours, reminiscing, laughing, even crying. It felt like finding a piece of myself I didn't realize was missing. I also joined a local writing circle. The first session was nerve-wracking. I almost didn't go. But once I did, I felt something shift. These were strangers, yet they offered feedback, encouragement, and presence. Step 3. Become a support system. The most powerful part of having a support system, Zen said, is becoming one. When you lift others, you lift yourself. This hit me hard. I'd spent so long feeling like I had nothing to give. But kindness, presence, and empathy don't cost anything. I started checking in on people, offering help, and listening, really listening. I began volunteering at a community center every weekend. One day, a teenager named Jay opened up to me about how he felt invisible at school and at home. I saw myself in him. I didn't have all the answers, but I listened. I showed up. And over time, he started smiling more, talking more. One day he said, "You make me feel like I matter." That moment alone was worth everything. Step 4. Strengthen your spiritual core. Zen once told me, when the world gets too loud, silence can become your sanctuary. You know where to find it. For him, and eventually for me, that sanctuary was faith. He shared how, during one of his lowest points, he found strength by reconnecting with his spiritual beliefs. Not just prayer or rituals, but truly believing in something greater than himself. Faith reminds us that we're never truly alone, he said. Even when people fail us, even when we feel forgotten, there's always a higher presence walking beside us. Inspired by his words, I began revisiting my own faith. I started reading scriptures in the morning and ending my days in reflection and gratitude. I remembered stories of prophets who relied on their community and on divine guidance. I drew strength from verses that spoke of companionship, compassion, and courage. And slowly, that internal flame began to burn again. The setbacks, of course, it wasn't all progress. Some days, I felt like retreating again. I doubted my worth, questioned if I was burdening others. But each time I returned to what Zen had taught me. I remembered Sardinia. I remembered Jay. I remembered that even in weakness, there is strength in reaching out. I found strength in faith too. During a particularly rough patch, I went back to church for the first time in years. There, I heard a sermon about how even Moses needed Aaron. Even the most chosen among us aren't meant to walk alone. That message settled deep in my heart. It reminded me that divine design includes companionship, the transformation. Months later, I looked around and realized something had shifted. My apartment was no longer silent. It echoed with laughter from dinners with friends, book club discussions, and late-night calls. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was living. Zen and I still met weekly. One afternoon, as we walked through the park, he asked, "How do you feel now?" I paused, alive, like I'm part of something bigger, like my story matters. He smiled, "Exactly. And now, you get to help someone else feel the same." The ripple effect. Support systems aren't just about surviving the storms. They're about thriving through them. They're about lifting others as we climb. The connections I rebuilt didn't just change my life, they impacted others too. Mia started a mental health awareness blog. Jay began mentoring younger kids at the community center. The ripples spread. What started with a single message from Zen grew into a network of love, trust, and resilience. If you're reading this and feel alone, know this. You don't have to carry the mountain alone. Start by reaching out. Rebuild a bridge. Be the support you once needed. That's how we heal, That's how we grow. That's how we rise.